Hey, City Group leaders, today we are talking about casting vision. And I'll say this, we're kicking off the skills season with this video on casting vision, and we're doing this before we're going over the skill of understanding, interpreting, and applying and teaching the Bible. We're putting this before the Bible stuff, so you know it must be pretty important. I actually happen to think that casting vision is one of the most important skills that you can have as a leader. And if you can master it, it is an amazing tool to have to be able to lead people and to be able to point people to Jesus. And I want to explain it to you this way. Well, imagine this with me. You've probably been in a scenario where you are going to a movie, you're driving to a movie theater, and you realize we are really late. Like, I don't know if we're going to make it on time for the beginning, and you're just hoping and praying on the way there, Jesus, let the trailers go along at the beginning so I can actually get there on time to see the beginning. And then when you finally rush in and find your seat, you realize very quickly we actually did miss the first several minutes of this movie. Now, if you're lucky in that scenario, you have a friend who beat you there and they can kind of fill you in on what happened. But if you're not lucky, which I've been unlucky before, you sit down and you realize for the next maybe 20 minutes or 60 minutes or even the entire movie, you are trying to figure out, wait, what happened in those first 5 or 10 minutes that I missed that would have helped me figure out what's going on? Like, wait, who is the bad guy in this? Or wait, how did we find ourselves here? Or what was the setup for this all? When you miss the beginning of a movie, you tediously try to figure out all that, and it leaves you confused, it leaves you guessing. Sometimes it can kind of leave you tuned out or just disinterested or bored or whatever. And I want to make the case today that when you don't cast vision as a leader, it does that exact same thing. It leaves people wondering what's going on. It leaves people confused, maybe tuned out, or even bored. And so our job as leaders, part of our jobs is to give people vision. And the reason that we want to give that vision to people, I already have it written on the board. The reason that we give that to people is because it aligns people with Jesus. Every time we give people vision, it orients or reorients people's hearts and their minds to what Jesus is trying to do and how we can join him in his mission. So in our one-on-one discipleship times, in our huddles maybe at times, in our city group discussions that we have, or even for some of us who are on stage, in our announcements that we give on Sundays, or even our sermons, leaders must cast vision in order to help align people with Jesus' vision, to get on board with where Jesus is really trying to take them. Otherwise, I believe it's going to be like our people feel like they've missed the beginning of the movie. They don't really know what's going on. They don't know how to interpret the information that's coming to them, and they may be tuned out, bored, confused, or maybe feel like they're misled in some way. So people will follow vision, people follow clarity, and so I believe it's our job as leaders to give them that vision. And today we're going to talk about how you cast vision by talking about two different things, or answering two different things. The first one, I'm going to write this in shorthand so you don't have to see my horrible writing. Why does this matter? What I'm saying to you right now, or what you're hearing, why does it matter? And the second thing is where are we going? So we're essentially answering two questions every time we cast vision. We're answering the question, why does this matter? And where are we going? Let me give you an example. So if you were at church this last Sunday, let me give you a summarized version. So notice that I didn't get up in a sermon introduction and say, hey, open your Bibles to Ephesians 1, first and second verse. We're talking about saints, we're talking about grace, we're talking about peace. Like, that leaves people confused. They don't know why this matters, and they don't know where we're going. But instead, I got up and said something to the effect of, hey, we know who this was written to. It was written to an Ephesian church who at one time was vibrant. They were following after Jesus. But we also know from the scriptures that 40 years later, this church plant had lost their first love. And what Paul is going to do is he's going to use some very important and particular words in order to help them on their journey keep from losing that first love. And so we as a church would do well to listen to this so we can be a church plant who is vibrant and growing in Jesus 40 years down the road. That's not exactly what I said, but you get the idea. But even in that, it's so much bigger than just saying the facts of the words or the verse that we are going to go through. But it really answered the question, why does this matter? It's because, in a way, we could be in danger of losing our first love as a church plant. We might not always be like this. And then it answered the question, where are we going? The idea of where we're going is that we want to understand and apply the words of Paul. Paul has some wisdom for us, and if we could listen to him, we might be able to change the outcome of where we're going. That introduction, whether you think it was good or not, was in some way laced with vision. I believe that leaders have the opportunity to cast vision every time they have a listening audience, and they actually should cast vision every time they have a listening audience, whether it's a one-on-one or a city group meeting or announcements or a sermon or whatever it may be. You notice that even in something like announcements, as simple as that, a couple weeks ago, in the last couple weeks when we've gotten up and announced the women's retreat, we don't say women's retreat. It's called A Beautiful Mess. It's February 22nd and 23rd. It's $50 or $60 or $70. I don't know. I'm not going. I don't know how much it costs. But it's going to be at the Lead Lodge in Nebraska City, and the sign-ups can be to whoever person. Well, we did cover some of that information, but what was that? That's just like facts being presented. It's just like a kind of a bunch of information, but yet it doesn't answer the question, why does this retreat matter? And it doesn't answer the question, where are we going? But instead, when we're up there, we're talking about this, why does this matter? Because it deepens relationships, right? Because it deepens our relationships. I think you get the idea. It deepens relationships with Jesus, with other people, because there is a wealth of wisdom in the different generations and the different walks of life of the women in our church. And where are we going? We are going to the women are going to get away to be able to do that in a concentrated time of relaxing, worshiping, and teaching, worship, and just a little bit of chilling. You get the idea. In every single thing that we do, we want to be able to have some sort of vision. So I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, I don't feel comfortable giving people vision. Like, I don't like telling people what to do. I think I don't want to have an agenda. I don't want people to think I'm weird or I'm controlling. But here's what I would say to that, if you're kind of feeling uneasy about it, is that God has called you to be a leader. And if he's called you to be a leader, he has given you at least some vision. And he has called you to lead. And if you don't tell people the vision that God has given you, you are leaving them to their own assumptions. You're leaving them without any sort of clarity of where you're going. You're leaving them to figure it out on their own, and you're essentially not shepherding them. And maybe the worst thing that could happen is that someone else could come in and give another vision and could lead them astray from that. And so if God has given you and your leadership team a sense of calling, a sense of clarity about where you're going, how incredibly important is it to communicate the heart and the vision of God in order to be able to align people in your group with Jesus? It is essential. It's one of the most helpful things that you could do. Now, let me give you a scenario maybe that you're familiar with, since a lot of you aren't preaching on Sundays or giving announcements on Sundays. So let's talk about a city group setting. If you're sitting there in your living room, imagine a crew of people descend on your house, and imagine a diverse crew of people coming in. So at first you have a couple that you invited in, and they've never been to church before. They've never been to a small group before, and so they're coming in and they don't really know what to expect. Then you have another crew of people who are coming over and they believe, they're coming in and say they're volunteering at a refugee placement organization. You have another group of people who are coming in, say a couple that are coming in from kind of an old school church that has Sunday school on Sunday mornings and no small groups. And then you have another three young people who are coming in, and they all went to youth group together, but they haven't been to a church in like 2 or 3 years, and they're coming in, and their experience of Jesus in the church is their mega church, pretty flashy youth group that they went to. So let's stop here and talk. You're about to sit down on a Wednesday night and you're about to lead your city group discussion, and you have an option to just kind of let the conversation flow and do what you want, or you can cast vision for them. Now, if you don't cast vision for them, think about what's going on in the heads of all those people sitting around in the room. First, you have this couple who's never been to a city group before. They've never been to a small group or a church function. They're coming in and they're thinking, wait, when I come over to someone's house, we usually watch football or eat dinner or talk and hang out. I have no idea what's going on here, and I have no idea what we're supposed to be trying to accomplish. Like, is this supposed to be awkward? Are we supposed to like solve some sort of problem? What is going on? You have another group of people who's coming from working with refugees for multiple days a week, and that is a passion of theirs, which is amazing, but they're thinking, hey, if we have any extra time, we shouldn't be talking about the Bible. We should be doing what it says. So we're wasting our time by sitting here just discussing the Bible. We need to get out and go do something and work with some people who are less fortunate in our setting. Now, you have another group of people, or maybe a couple who's come from a Sunday school class, and they're looking like, wait, why is everyone talking? There should be a main teacher who's teaching us, and this should be a Bible study of sorts where we're gaining more knowledge about what's going on. And then you have another crew of people who come from a youth group where they were entertained their whole life when they were in a church setting, and they're thinking, wait, if this isn't doing it for me, if this is not exciting or entertaining for me, I'm just going to get out of here after a little bit. You start to understand that people have a lot of different assumptions, and people have assumptions. If you don't tell them, they will have assumptions about where you're going. And it, a lot of times, or sometimes at least, isn't the place where you are imagining you're going, and you haven't clearly defined for any of them why that matters. That's why it is essential. You and your leaders, really, your leadership team, have prayerfully discerned from God what a vision for your group is. And you may not feel like you know it exactly, but you have a lot in there. You have a lot in your heart and your head that you feel like you have been called to, and God has given you, He has spoken to you guys and given you a vision for your group. And so it is it a good idea to cast vision for your group? Man, absolutely. You have an opportunity every time you gather, or every time you have someone listening, to be able to align people with Jesus. Otherwise, people are misled, they're confused, they don't know what's going on, or maybe they might tune out and just peace out after a while. You know, one thing, this is just kind of an aside that I have a tendency to do to help keep me sharp in vision casting is, if I sit down to lead a city group discussion, or even if I get on stage to do announcements or preach a sermon, I a lot of times will just assume that people don't care what I have to say. I will assume that people are maybe already tuned out, or they have no reason to listen, or maybe they're already bored or uninterested, and it challenges me to be clear in helping people define why this specific thing matters and where we are going. And so I have a couple challenges for you. One that I want you to work through as a group, as a leadership team, and the other one I want you to work through individually. So first, as a leadership team, I want you to take your city group in general so you can get some sort of a cohesiveness about this. And I want you to write maybe a phrase or a sentence together on, why does this matter? Why does our city group matter? Why is this important? What's at stake if we don't meet as a city group and we don't grow as a city group? And then do that with the same with the other question. Where are we going? Like, What is our preferred future? What's our vision going to be? What would it look like if we succeeded in a year or 2 years or whatever? Then, secondly, I want you as an individual to just practice this one more time and take a meeting that you have coming up. Maybe it's a city group discussion that you're leading. Maybe it's a one-on-one that you have coming up. And I want you to go through those same 2 questions and prayerfully wrestle with God about when you're meeting with this person one-on-one or when you're leading a discussion, like, why does this matter? What is at stake in this conversation if they don't get this specific aspect of truth or God or the gospel that we're going to be talking about? What really is it? And then go to this other question and really wrestle with God about where are we going? Where do you believe that God is taking this, or where could we end up if we follow God or if we follow after Jesus in this? So just to wrap up, I believe that God has given you guys vision. You are leaders. He's called you to do that, and part of that is leading and shepherding, and you do that well by using your words to cast vision. And we can cast this vision that give people a clear reason and a clear path to move forward in order to be aligned with Jesus. So let's do some good work. Let's think about the words that we use, and let's get out there and cast vision and align people with the heart of Jesus.